Welcome to the Tough Fish Show. I am so excited to bring to you Sarah Vie. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. And I would love for you to start with, how did you get into writing?
Well, the question is, I always love that question because I never thought that I would ever be a writer. Long story short, I always had this block that I couldn't write. It's because that's how sort of our trauma, if you will, from childhood starts becoming our identity, and I had a terrible fear of failure. So I wouldn't start anything new because in my mind, if I didn't finish something or if I failed at something that led me to not being loved. This is a child speaking. So one of my fears was writing because I told myself that I did not know. I didn't know how to write. I couldn't do it. I wasn't creative. And with the healing, this is why I'm telling you the story. With all this healing that I've done in my life, I've healed that story. And now I tell myself a different story. And it's, of course you can. This is part of your purpose. And now, I can't think of my life without writing. So it just shows you how, false the things that we keep telling ourselves over and over again, how they stop us from living a life of purpose.
Oh, wow. I am so glad you shared that because there are so many writers who,
Yeah.
no matter how many books they've published, but especially sometimes that first one, they feel like, who am I to have written this book? Who is going to read this? Is it good enough? What's going to
Oh my
happen?
God.
And those stories that they're telling themselves, and even when they've published multiple books, they still could get in their head like, well, is it going to be as good as the first one? Will people still want to read it? Or if they've had some not so great reviews, then and they're still persevering, they know that they want to tell the story, then they get in their head going, oh, but those, will I get more of those bad reviews?
And yes, and I have never, I'm just kind of thinking back, like I never had that fear that, oh my God, what are people going to think? Because in my second book, I wish I'd known. I share many of my healing stories. I mean, there's some very juicy stories in there, and I just don't care. I don't care if somebody, because you are going to have the what do you call, the sideline critics, the ones that can't do it themselves, but it's easier for them to criticize somebody else who's doing it, right? So it's easy to be one of those critics. But I never even thought about that, about like what are people going to think? Because I don't care. I don't care what people think about my writing. I mean, it's just like being an artist and having a gallery showing and people will criticize. I mean, then that's part of the game, is somebody else's opinion about your work. And so I think that the stories, the limited stories that we tell ourselves and we believe it's true, they're not true. Like, and who cares? Like, do you care more about not doing it because you're afraid of what people think, or do you really more care about you living and being in a high vibration of being creative? Like, I would take that over. I just don't care. I mean, I say that now, but I haven't had any terrible reviews. So, but and I just want to go back to a point, like, if we constantly focus on what we don't want, meaning, oh God, I'm going to get all these reviews, you will attract something similar to that, because what you focus on, you attract. So I never focused that I was going to, get a terrible review, and so far so good. So yeah. So but the limitations of our beliefs is what holds us back from living what we're supposed to be doing on this planet.
I love everything that you are saying. And would like for you to expound, like, let's go a little deeper in the sense that let's say
Mhm.
that there is someone who, you know, logically they know, logically they get it. And it's just the how do they start to tell themselves a different story? Like you said that when you there was some
Mm.
reprogramming that you did that you had
Mhm.
heard when you were younger and you reprogrammed that for yourself. You told yourself a different story. But even that act of starting to retell yourself a
Mm.
different story, that
Mhm.
is an act of courage. That's a big step for someone because sometimes it feels like, I know I can do this. And it's almost kind of like dueling voices that like two different characters you're dealing with, really. One character is going, yes,
Yeah.
we can do this. And the other one's going, are you kidding?
Mm.
What were you thinking? Kind of a thing. So, what would
Yeah.
you say to someone who is making that transition?
I would say that first you need to get quiet enough in your mind. I have been practicing meditation for probably 5 5 to 6 years. I mean, every single day. And what that has helped me do is to realize, like, and to understand what what stories that I'm telling myself are real and what stories I have learned from my past, something that I've learned, right? The closer we so this is my work actually that I do, but the closer we get to our core essence of who we start understanding what stories don't make any sense to that energy. And the quieter you get, the more you can understand first is the language that we use to ourselves. So I knew all my stories about success, about living my own life, were all connected from what I learned as a child. So they all had to do with, oh, you're not gonna, the majority of limited stories are connected to something that we've experienced in our childhood. Because little babies and little children, they think that there's nothing that they can't do. And so what happens is the older we get, the more we have this kind of cement being put, melted over our core essence. So I think what I would, gently guide somebody is to really get quiet and to listen to the stories. Are they real? Are they real? Because if they're limited, they're not real, because nobody comes out of the, as I mean, you don't hear little children going around saying, oh, I'm not enough. I mean, maybe there are, but the majority of little children are really connected to their core essence. And when we get older, we start identifying with those stories that limit us from living this incredibly creative and abundant life. So I would really say again, just to get quiet, to really understand, are they real? And if they're limited, they're not real. So
I
this is something that I have definitely learned and understood, because if you don't know what the stories are, how do you know which ones need to be shifted or reprogrammed?
You know what's coming to me is when you think about like Halloween and the little ones coming around in their little costumes, and they are
Mhm.
adorable and they own their little costumes. And like, like, so, oh my gosh, you're the Hulk. I am the Hulk. Kind of a thing. And you can see
Yes.
it like they want to embody the character that they have, or I am a princess. It's time to curtsy for you and show you that I need to
Right.
curtsy today. And it's so precious watching them because that's what they are they what they're saying, I am today, I am the Hulk,
Yes.
I am a princess, I
Right.
am this Power Ranger or whatever. And
Yes.
you can't tell them that they're not because they look at you and go, oh yes I
Uh-huh.
am.
Yes, yeah, but it's amazing that like Halloween costumes are not like, you know, a dunce sitting in a corner with a dunce hat, or, somebody that does it's all about like power and, what children want to be. And, that kind of takes me into my little children's book, which is called Let Your Inner Golden Sparkle Shine. And it's all about, teaching children that what they want, how to get through very difficult situations lies within themselves. And it was actually, I did a lot of inner child healing. And this little book was kind of my celebration of when I healed that inner child, that I realized, like, let your inner golden sparkle shine. This is, and it's just won some international awards, which I'm so thrilled about, because with my first publisher, I didn't it didn't get the credit that it really was due. And now I've shifted to another amazing publisher, and they have, put it in contests, and I have this fabulous, beautiful award. It was like the top children's book award in the readers. So that was a big thrill, because it is such a great story to teach children to never forget about, that they always have an inner golden sparkle. I don't care what your story is. We all do. And the story is for children, but the message is for every single one of us, that we forget that we all have this incredible inner golden sparkle.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking that too as we were talking about Halloween. That was running through my mind like, oh, this children's book, we're going to be talking about it. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. And it's so great about the awards.
Mm.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. That was, yeah,
You hit
go
on a
ahead.
couple of things with that I'd love for you to touch on. One
Yeah.
of which is you weren't afraid to make a transition. If you felt like something wasn't working for whatever the reason, it doesn't have to be some earth-shattering kaboom that it's not working. It could just be that inner knowing that says something, I think I've outgrown this space and it's time to
Mhm.
make a pivot, but you still took that, you were still willing to take that step, and it was a
Mhm.
leap of faith.
Mhm.
What helped you to make that decision, to know that I need to course correct or I need to make an adjustment?
So are you referring to my books, or what yeah. Um Again, it was just my intuition calling out, because, I've been on this incredibly beautiful journey of healing. And I do a lot in my work. I do a lot of helping people to change the energy, because I'm an energy facilitator as well, and we change the energy inside of us. And the first part of my journey was all about shifting the energy from my inner child, because we all have one. We've all had trauma. I don't care whether you tell me that you've had a perfect childhood. Children interpret things completely different than adults. So along my journey was this beautiful little book. I'm just so proud of it. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. But that was the first part of my journey, and, of healing my inner child. And because I healed my inner child, I was able to then be inspired to write my next book, which was I Wish I'd Known. It's my healing memoir, and
Mhm.
it's steps that I used. And, so I'll back up a little bit. So this one, I Wish I'd Known, is all about releasing the energy of ancestral patterns. And, what covers your inner golden sparkle are is the energy from our 3 generations of ancestral patterning that we hold in our DNA.
Mhm.
And that's the next stage of my journey, which is all about 10 ways to release the energy of your ancestral patterning. There's so much research in that book, in chapter 2, about how we do. It's scientifically proven that we hold the generations of unhealed pain and trauma. So, maybe even start looking at, do does your limitations in your life, are they connected somehow to someone, meaning your family of origin? ha- does somebody else have the same ideas, that, you're not good enough, and oh my god, the fear of being judged or whatever, because it's energy. And that could be what is holding someone back from pursuing a writing career too. It's connected to somebody else. Because I had the energy from my mother. She didn't think she could do anything. She was afraid of failing. And that what leads into my next book.
Okay, so here's what I'm deducing from this.
Yes.
That that first off, there's the golden thread, if you will, that enables you to write in multi-genre. So yes, for children, but then
Mhm.
also nonfiction. But the thread is because that they are under this umbrella of working, like they are complementing each other and building blocks to each other. But to going
Exactly.
back to making that pivot from the children's book from one publisher to another publisher, and that second publisher really helping you to reach more people,
Mhm.
to help this book get more out into the world. You know,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing you say is going back to those beliefs. What stories are you telling yourself? So if a writer is sitting there going, "Do I make this change? Is it time to shift to a different publisher? Do I
Mm.
go a different path altogether?" Go
Mhm.
back and also look at what's coming up for you. Why is this upsetting you so versus is it feeling scary because maybe you've failed at something else before, maybe you got criticized for trying something
Mm.
different, or
Mhm.
instead, could you reframe it and say, "But what might happen? How
Yeah.
might this change things? What could possibly happen that would be exciting and feel expansive and not feel like diminishing?" As what I'm hearing you
Yeah.
really kinda and helping you to kind of make decisions in the business when things are coming up as opportunities.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, that it because for my children's book, I did my first publisher was a nightmare. Like, it was a nightmare. I mean, it was because, and what I always say is your inner feeling that your energy that you're feeling inside is the magnet of what you attract, right? So I was in kind of a little bit more of I didn't have a huge amount of clarity. I didn't understand about the publishing world. I was maybe feeling a little insecure. I mean, we don't wish these experiences, but I feel like my publisher was kind of matching how I was feeling inside, just kind of not clear. I don't know. And when I started really getting into this work and feeling better inside, this new publisher came around. I mean, I know I work with a thought leader this is her publishing house,
Nice.
and I'm having a completely different experience now. Because I understand this, I'm getting winning awards. I'm all over the world with my both of my books. And how do you make this transition? I think that it's just it is following my intuition. Like it just I might even go back to making a part two of this little book, and I have a great idea of but I love. I mean, it's a completely different genre, and the going from children's books to nonfiction. It's different, but it's the same kind of thing. I
Mhm.
mean, it's the same process, but just kind of a little different, if you will.
So that's interesting. So you feel like the process for you to create the book really is about the same process, or even when it's a different genre, just the sheer fact it's a different book, or there's some nuances?
Um, I mean, now that I'm using this new publisher,
Yeah.
it's kind of the same. I mean, she promotes it in a different in the same way. When I do book signings, I it's the same. The process is the same. I mean, of course, the book is shorter. It doesn't have as many printed pages, that kind of thing. But my book was a hardcover. It was beautiful, and they actually took it from the old publisher and they revised it and made it look. I mean, they added artwork on it. I mean, it's just the sweetest little book. But the process is the same. And I think that the process is the same now because I'm so proud of it. I'm not ashamed. I'm like going and going to so many different book signings. I'm actually going to be going to Paris in June, and my publisher has me doing a book signing on some book barge in the middle of the Seine river in June. So, she's creating so many of these like really cool opportunities. And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, I'm going. So yeah. So
but
lots of new things coming up.
that is cool. So so once it hits the publishing space, I can understand the similarity of how some of those pieces are coming together. But
Yeah.
but to get it to the publishing space, is it more of a download that happens for your writing process, and then each download like those processes, the writing process itself is about the same, or is it different
Yeah,
with the different books?
it's well, the way yes. So what I mean, I have a very strange way of writing. I don't know if it's strange, but it's my way. But I write chapter per I mean, with the children's book, I basically literally wrote that in like I just had this like sudden download of like, I know exactly what it is. It's like a little verse, and then there's little experiences that children perhaps might find difficult, and it's children love rhyme, and
Mhm.
it's rhymey, and so that I wrote in literally 2 hours. Like I just had this like idea, and I definitely get help. Like my writing mentor, which I've worked with for about 5 years, helped me with that one. So I wrote that in about 2 hours. The second one did not take 2 hours. It took about 6 months, but I write chapter per chapter. I know what the subject's going to be. There is a technique and a system that I use. And but I what I do is I just write first. I start writing down just thoughts about each chapter has an outline for each chapter, and then I start just kind of downloading what I want to say, creating a story, a teaching, or whatever. I have a system, and then once all the so I'm on for my third book specifically, I'm on chapter 9, and then I have my editor who edits the each chapter for me, and then I send the whole manuscript to another editor who then edits the whole manuscript. So now that I've done the second book, it's kind of I know what to expect for my third one. But my first one was it took me 2 hours. They and again it was through a different publishing house, so I didn't have that experience with my current one.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm hearing though is really you were getting quiet, you were hearing
Hmm.
the idea came to you, it presented itself, however it was going to, so if it was a download or inspiration coming from another way, capturing it, working with it, moving it through its processes, and it's also, you can feel the joy that went into them, and when that joy is there,
Oh my
that is
God.
so important because that really that needs to be at the crux of what you're creating. Even
Hmm.
if you're writing a thriller, you still want to be
Yeah.
excited about what you're writing and excited to share it, because if once it's
Yes.
published and then you feel excited to share,
Oh
that's
yeah.
still more of that joy coming through, and that is really part of that storytelling that you can tell yourself of, I had a great time putting this together, or even when it was challenging, even when I was in the murky middle of my edits or what have you, I
Hmm.
still felt like I was doing meaningful work, or I was still excited, or going
Yeah.
back to something that makes it exciting or makes it feel joyful when you do feel
Mhm.
stuck. So that's what I
Yes.
hear you really honing in on is
Yes.
joy.
Yeah, and it is so fun. I mean, I am not a writer that um can write for 3 hours at a time. I'm not. I kind of think about it in my mind like wouldn't that be great just like have an afternoon and just write. I don't write like that. I write little sentences, and then I have to stop, and then I come back and write little sentences, and then like I was just writing last night, and I just notice I cannot write for 3 hours at a time with a cup of tea or whatever. I have to do it in little spurts, but then I go back and I read it, and it's really really the coolest thing to actually see what is happening here onto a page. Like, I love that. I love being able to express my thoughts on a page because mine, of course, are nonfiction. And I just, that was always something, well, I can't really, I can't explain what I'm thinking. But now I'm so structured in my writing that I know exactly how I write. Like sometimes I just like scribble down a thought and then I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then expand it. So if anybody tried to read my rough draft of when I, create the paragraphs or the chapters, they would never be able to follow along because everything is just kind of, all over the place. But I tell you what, the joy that you feel when you send your manuscript to your editor and it's gone, like there's nothing else, and you know that you've done your best, it is the most fulfilling feeling to do that. So I just encourage anybody and who cares whether it's not, see, we're such perfectionists, and perfectionism is just another form of fear that we stop ourselves from like creating this. It is so much fun to be able to have an idea, and believe me, I'm not doing this alone. We've got to have help, either from an editor or a coach or somebody to help you get your words down on your page, because the only reason why you can't do that is something that you keep telling yourself, like, oh, this is stupid, this is dumb, or whatever it is.
This is amazing. Oh my goodness, Sarah, the time has flown.
Oh
Where can
yeah.
people connect with you? Where can people get books? Where can they
Yes.
find out about your upcoming book?
Oh, right. Well, I haven't, I have May as the date where my upcoming book is my manuscript's going to be finished. But I wish I'd known, they're all on my website, which is Sarah Vie, SARAH.vie.com. And you'll go to the drop down where it says books, and they are available there. There's also, it's called books.sarahvie.com. So you put the books ahead of Sarah Vie. And there's some beautiful gifts that I have for everybody. When you download or put your email in, and you will get a beautiful gift, which is a meditation. And then I also have a quiz. This is all about my work, a quiz to see where you might be blocked in your 7 chakras. So there's a gift. So yeah, books.sarahvie.com or sarahvie.com, and go to books, drop down, and you'll see I Wish I'd Known, and then Let Your Inner Golden Sparkle Shine.
Love this,
And then
Sarah.
my next one will be next, coming up, probably September. I'm launching this one.
That is awesome, and congratulations on the upcoming release, because it'll happen.
Yes.
It's happening.
Yes, it will. It will. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Sarah. This has been awesome.
Oh, you're so welcome. A pleasure.